Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for April's Stampin' class by mail. I'm Brenda Cardinal of StampinTulip.Stampinup.net, and I can't wait for you to make this month's cards featuring the Birthday Bonanza suite of products by Stampin' Up. I've teamed up with fellow demonstrator Gina Wieselman to offer our monthly classes by mail. This month, it's Gina's turn to show you how to stamp and assemble your cards, and next month it'll be my turn. Make sure to watch to the end of the video for a sneak peek of next month's cards and for some bonuses for signing up for May's class. Have fun making your cards. Here's Gina.
Hi everyone, I'm Gina Wieselman of MySweetPaper.com, and I can't wait to show you how to stamp and assemble your cards this month. We'll be using the Bonanza Buddies suite of Stampin' Up! Products from the January to June 2020 mini catalog, and one of our cards features a fun fold design. From the suite, we'll be using the Bonanza Buddies stamps, Bonanza dies, Birthday Bonanza Designer Series paper, assorted pom-poms, and we'll be using the 1/4" Whisper White crinkled seam binding ribbon. We'll also be using a celebration item, the Metallic Baker's Twine and Sequins combo pack, and we'll have some elements using the tufted 3D embossing folder, layering circles dies, and stitch shapes dies. Please reach out to Brenda or me if you need any supplies or would like to learn more about becoming a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator or hosting an event. Let's start stamping. If you're participating in the class by mail, all your parts and pieces will be cut and sent to you as part of your kit. If you're not participating in the class by mail, go ahead and pause the video here and cut and prep all the parts and pieces you need for our first card. Some of your kits may also contain a toucan piece that includes balloons. And just for your reference, the way that I cut these was a partial die cut. So I positioned the circle from the layering circles die around the toucan in the Designer Series paper, but I left the balloon portion hanging off the end of the cutting plate so that that part of the circle didn't cut out. It's my standard practice in card making to always start with any stamping first. In this case, because we have the banner, I'm actually going to start with my punch. This is the banner triple punch, which is great because it has 3 different size guides on the punch, but you can also accommodate things that don't fit perfectly with the guides. So I'm just going to flip this over so that I can make sure everything is centered and punch on both sides. I am sliding my paper all the way to the back of the punch, and that will give me the appropriate size for my card. I'm going to do the same thing with my Mango Melody. And finally with my Bermuda Bay. And this one does fit perfectly in the guides because it is that 1 inch length. So I will still scoot it all the way back and punch. Before I finish this last punch, I do want to show you one tip. If you're using a paper snips for this, you can cut up the middle as far as you'd like to go, and then from either corner cut diagonally in to meet. And that's a lot easier in terms of centering. Just to keep things even here, I am going to finish out my last punch. With the banner punched and ready to go, I am ready for my stamping. This card just uses the Memento Tuxedo Black ink pad, and I'm going to start with my stamp that says "Let's Celebrate You" for the front. Inking that up, and then I'm going to stamp right on my banner. I love the photopolymer stamps being see-through because that looks pretty darn straight and centered there. And then for the inside of my card, I went with the happy birthday greeting. So I'm going to ink that up and stamp that as well. With the stamping complete, we're ready to start assembling. I'm going to start with my basic black card base, which is scored. Fold that in half and crease with my bone folder. And then I'm just going to layer from the bottom up. So I'll start with the striped designer series paper. It also has a fun pattern on the back side, but I found that this with the added elements just became too busy. So sadly, I am going to cover this up, but I'm just going to be generous with my snail adhesive and then center this on my card. I'm making sure to line up the bottom. Of course, you could do the top as well, but I just want to make sure that one of the sides is perfectly flush with the edge, because then I can take my paper snips and go back in and trim where it's needed. I do typically leave these strips a little bit long in the kits, just because I would rather you trim a little bit than have any shortages of that. Before I forget, I'm going to adhere the inner panel to the inside of my card. Just centering that up and applying pressure. And now we can keep building. The next thing I'm going to do is just drape this banner across the top, and I am using my multi-purpose liquid glue for that. So I'll just bring, ooh, that's a bit aggressive. Now that maybe didn't look like a lot of glue, but I don't want it to ooze out of the sides. So I'm actually gonna just use my fingers a little bit. Don't want any excess of that. And then on the card, I positioned this across the front so that it lined up on each side. I'll get rid of that little bit of extra. There we go. And by doing that, I don't have to trim these edges at all. Of course you could if you wanted, but I just found that it lined up pretty easily with that. Before we add our last couple of elements, I'm just going to start by layering these pieces. So I'll start by layering the circle toucan, which I cut using the layering circles dies, onto the scalloped one, also cut using that same set of dies. And then I'm going to layer up the banners, which we already punched. So I'll start with this. And then add the greeting. Okay. And then to adhere these to the card, I'm just going to use my regular size dimensionals. So I'll do a few on there. And here. Peel up those backings. And I found that I preferred to put the greeting on first so that I could center it and make sure that a little bit of the striped paper was showing through at the bottom. And then now with that positioned how I want it to be, I'm going to add our fun little toucan and kind of space that somewhere between the banner and the greeting. The final touch I'm going to add is these sequin elements, and these came out of the metallic Baker's Twine and Sequins combo pack that was part of Celebration. Now, if you didn't get in on time to get a set of these, you could certainly use any of Stampin' Up's other sequins with this card. I chose these because, I don't know if you can see that up close, but they have a really fun striped pattern to them. And of course, the colors just coordinated perfectly with the bright, fun birthday Bonanza suite. So I will bring in my 3 sequins. And that's it. And here are the parts and pieces for our second card design. As usual, I'm going to start with some stamping. And in this case, for stamping the koala, I'm going to layer my Stampin' Pierce mat behind. This will be helpful because the koala has some pretty concentrated color to it. It's a pretty solid image. And the Stampin' Pierce mat just helps to make sure that it transfers fully. For the first part, I'm going to use my Smoky Slate ink pad. And just go ahead and ink up my koala nice and completely. And then just place it near the bottom of this piece for our tag. For the inside of this card, I did also stamp another koala in the bottom corner. So while I have my Smoky Slate ink out, I'm going to go ahead and ink this guy up and stamp again. The koala's face, as well as the greeting both on the front and on the inside, are stamped using the Memento Tuxedo Black ink. So I'm going to start with my inside greeting, ink that up, stamp that. And then this little stamp for the koala's face. Again, thank goodness for photopolymer because I'm able to get this where it needs to go. One more time for the koala's face. And then I'll come back with the happy birthday stamp. Now I'm making sure to place this toward the top so that there's plenty of room for the koala's birthday hat. And the last little bit of stamping is actually that birthday hat, and I'm stamping that using the Mango Melody. So I'm just going to ink up that stamp and drop those stripes right on top. Because it's such a tight fit, it probably will stick to your stamp, so you can just use your fingernail to drop that off. That is the full extent of the stamping for the card, but I just love decorating my envelopes. So if you'd like, now would be a great time to also stamp the little koala on your envelope for this card. And now we're going to start building our layers up on the card. Once again, I have a strip of Designer Series paper that's going to perfectly line up with this embossed piece of Mango Melody cardstock. And again, I left it a little bit long for you. This is especially the case because when you emboss paper, it sometimes seems to shrink a little bit depending on how intricate the embossing is. So I am going to, again, get my snail adhesive on here. And I will point out the paper. It might not seem it at first, but it is directional with the little bow loops hanging down. We don't want to fight gravity and have those in the wrong direction. So I'm going to make sure that that is in the right direction as I place this on the cardstock. I'll then take my paper snips to trim this. And then we'll move forward with assembling. We'll fold our card base in half and crease with the bone folder. Add on this layer. I'm just centering that right on the card base. And then for our little tag, we have this Bermuda Bay piece already cut for you. So you'll just add your snail to the stamped portion. And as I place this down, I'm just looking at the 3 sides and aiming for an equal border on those 3 since the top is a different shape. Okay. I am going to add this little guy's birthday hat right away. Again, using my multi-purpose liquid glue. Oh no. Okay. Now for the little ribbon element up here, we'll be using the Whisper White crinkled seam binding ribbon. And then for the tie on that, I have a few different options for you. My initial sample uses the Bermuda Bay baker's twine, and I also thought this Daffodil Delight baker's twine looked great. And both of those options came from the Celebration item, Metallic Baker's Twine and Sequins Combo Pack. I really loved this Celebration item because it was absolutely free with my $50 purchase, and I got a spool of each color of baker's twine as well as hundreds of those pretty sequins. Now, if you did miss out on ordering those items, Celebration items sometimes do sell out depending on demand, I want to show you a little trick. So I'm going to just bring in some scrap paper and some of the plain Whisper White baker's twine. I also have my Stampin' blend in the dark Bermuda Bay color, and I'm going to just open it up to the brush tip, and you can actually create your own colored baker's twine just by coloring right on the Whisper White. And so you'll want to give it plenty of time to dry, but once it's dry, it should be set to go. It is alcohol-based marker, so it shouldn't smear with your fingers or anything like that. So in that way, you could color this whole thing of baker's twine to still get the colored effect on your card. For this sample, just to show you a different color combination, I'm going to use the Daffodil Delight. And to start, I'm just bringing the Whisper White crinkled seam binding ribbon through. And then I'm going to loop this baker's twine behind it and start by tying half of a knot. So just like you're tying your shoes there. With the string that's pulled down, I'm going to come up and create my first loop. Then with the one that's up, I'm going to come around and just push through the hole. Once that initial bow is done, of course, you'll want to adjust and pull and play around with the size and tighten and all those good things. But I did leave you plenty of ribbon in the kits as well as in the dimensions I shared, just to make sure that there's plenty of extra so you're not too worried about trying to tie a bow with the minimum possible. So I'll trim those up and then come to the top here and trim these at an angle as well. That was not a very good angle. Okay. With the tag done, we are going to use our Stampin' Dimensionals to pop this up. And I'm going to be generous with these. I don't like it when my pop-ups start to sag in the middle, so I would rather use a few more than run into that issue. Okay. The other thing that I played around with when I was designing this card was whether to have this straight or angled, and I thought it was really fun both ways. When I decided to make it straight, I didn't want half of the designer series paper to show through the punch, so that's why I positioned it off-centered. Again, for this sample, just to show things a little bit differently, I'm going to go ahead and angle this. You might need to trim your ribbon a little bit more depending on your placement. There we go. And then the very last piece is the cute little pom-pom. The package of assorted pom-poms does come with 4 different colors, 25 of each, I believe. So again, these bright colors just work great with this card. And in this case, I'm going to use if I can get it, one of the Bermuda Bay ones, just to show you a slightly different color combination. Again, I'm going to be using my liquid glue and being very careful this time. I'm gonna just put a little dot at the top of the hat. And I found it's much easier to put the glue on the hat as opposed to trying to get it on the pom-pom. And then just drop that down and press. You will want to give it plenty of time to dry, but once it's dry, that pom-pom is stuck there pretty well using the liquid glue. So there, with our decorated envelope, is our second card design. And here are the parts and pieces for our third and final card design. I just love this card design because it's a fun fold and it features this cool little buckle fold with an area where you can tuck in the front piece. This will not be surprising to you, but we are going to start with stamping. Again, with Tuxedo Black ink. I'm going to grab the greeting, "I'm glad it's your birthday, so I can tell you how wonderful you are." That nice and inked up. And I'm just going to position that so it's centered on the circle that is already cut for you using the stitch shapes dies. The only other stamping for this card uses the Mango Melody stamp pad, and it's just this back panel for the inside of the card. So I'm going to come in and just randomly position these little pieces. I love this stamp. It is the pom-pom for the party hat, but I also think it looks like, you know, a burst of sun or something like that, and just adds a really fun patterned background here. Now, if you did purchase the Class by Mail kit, this was already punched for you to create that buckle fold, but just in case, I want to show you how I did that. So I started and I actually adhered the designer series paper down first before punching anything. So I put that on this little flap near the score line, centering that up. And then before I folded this cardstock and creased along the score line, I took my classic label punch and I slid this all the way in so that the paper is hitting the back of the punch. And once it's back that far, to center it on the card, I'm just looking for an even amount of paper on either side. And then I punch through both layers. And that placement should be perfect for where your buckle fold will close. Now that that piece is punched, I'm going to fold this along the score line using my bone folder. And the next thing I'm going to do is glue down, using my snail adhesive, that background piece that we stamped using Mango Melody. This is important because the other pieces will layer on top of it. So I do not want to forget, I do not want to forget to put this piece down. The next thing I'm going to do is layer up this piece, which ends up being the part that opens. Now it is key for this. It's kind of backwards when you think about how you usually open up a card, in that you're going to be opening it this way and putting your Whisper White insert down on that side. So again, making extra sure that I'm doing it the backwards, strange way from what I would normally do in a card. I'm going to adhere this down. And then on what will be the front, I'll add this kind of confetti sprinkled designer series paper. And you get a peek of the super cute lions, which were on the back side of that paper as well. This designer series paper is some of my favorite. Okay. I'm not going to add the kind of medallion piece quite yet. First, I want to get this secured down on my card. So what I'm going to do is put my snail adhesive on the back. I am being very generous here. And then I'm going to slide this in the buckle a little bit. And then before I press down, I'm just checking to make sure that it looks about straight. And now when I apply pressure, it is perfectly lined up where it needs to be. Of course, the last piece is our little greeting here. So I'm going to use my snail to first mount that on the Grapefruit Grove medallion. And these were cut using the stitch shapes dies and the layering circles dies for that medallion, or the scalloped piece. And then that needs to get glued on. The only part that sneaks off the edge is the very top and bottom. So as I'm applying my snail, I'm making sure I don't go all the way to the top or bottom. And then I'm just gonna center this up. And the part that I'm looking at for centering is this designer series paper. Apply some pressure, and our fun fold design is complete. I absolutely love this suite of products, and I had a lot of fun creating some additional samples to share with you. This first sample was inspired by my friend and team member, Sarah Erickson, and I love the way it uses some watercolor paper to add some fun color in the background. This next sample is actually a swap that I received from the monthly swapping club I'm part of. So this design was made by Denise Quayle. I also love this designer series paper with all of the small characters across it, so you get to see each of the cute little animals. I decided to use the stitched dies to add the greeting and emphasize our little lion with his balloons there. Now, if you've taken one of these classes before, you know that I love repurposing card layouts and utilizing them using new patterns and colors and papers. So what I did for this design was I adopted the buckle fold layout, but instead of the greeting being showcased on the front, I decided to showcase our little koala. And in this case, you open up and have a little greeting inside. And finally, another card inspired by one of the layouts of the three we designed. I wanted to step this up a little bit, add a bit of complexity and dimension to it. So it's actually a shaker card and has the fun little sequins inside, which I think is just so festive and fun for a birthday. Thank you for participating in this month's Stampin' Class by Mail. And here's Brenda with a few more things for you.
Thanks for demonstrating how to make those adorable cards, Gina. If you ordered a class by mail kit from either Gina or myself, make sure to follow the link in the email that shared this video with you for a specially curated Pinterest page that Gina and I put together with even more fun ideas of how you might use your birthday Bonanza supplies. May is my turn to design and share the cards with you, and I'm really excited because we'll be using the brand new Ornate Garden Suite by Stampin' Up. Now you may be asking yourself, where did that suite come from? I haven't heard of it before. And that's because the Ornate Garden Suite is a sneak peek of one of the suites you'll see in the 2020-2021 annual catalog launching in June. And the best part, you can order it right now. Here are the 3 card designs for May's class. One of them features a fun fold. For the May card designs, I'll be using the Ornate Thanks stamp set, the Ornate Garden Specialty Designer Series paper, the Ornate Garden Ribbon Combo Pack, and the Gilded Gems. Also from the suite, I'll be using the Ornate Borders dies and the Ornate Floral 3D Embossing folder. We'll also be using the half-inch circle, Daisy, Label Me Lovely, and detailed trio punches. All punched, die-cut, and embossed images will be provided with your kit. Note, the Ornate Thanks stamp set and the Ornate Borders dies can be purchased as a bundle. By purchasing the bundle, you save 10% on both items. The Ornate Garden Suite also has a second stamp set called Ornate Style and a second set of dies called Ornate Layers. These can be purchased separately or as a bundle as well. Do you want it all? Stampin' Up! Has made it really easy. You can purchase the entire suite of products with just one item number. That's 154153. The registration deadline for this class to guarantee your kit or kits is May 5th, but we have a special bonus if you register by April 27th, 2020. If you register by this date, we'll include 2 completed cards with envelopes with your May class kit. We also have some bonuses if you find new friends to take our Stampin' class by mail, so make sure to check your email or reach out to Gina or myself to learn more. If you're not already on one of our email lists, please reach out to either of us to learn more about this and other fun stamping opportunities we have. As always, we would love to have your feedback on our Stampin' class by mail. And until next month, happy stamping!